Okay, I'm back. Technical difficulties or Wendy difficulties. So we are going to share this stream like we always do with our pages. So give us a second and then we'll be right here to start the show. Okay. Give me a second. Do you see it?
Not yet.
Okay, I see it now.
It'll just come up.
Okay, share.
Here we are.
To Wendy. Wendy difficulties. Give me a second. Share on my timeline. Okay. Join me in Dr. Anika in the sanctuary. Okay. All right, so I'm going to come out of there so I'm not distracted by that. Okay. All right, let me know when you're ready.
Right. Got it.
Okay, had to get my script up. Like I ain't been saying this for a year. I forget it. Welcome to the Sanctuary. You're listening to DC Radio 96.3, HD4, and DCRadio.gov. I'm Wendy Cherry, your host, and we are talking about one of my favorite topics. We're talking about spirituality and femininity and leadership in a mind, body, spirit kind of way. So in the sanctuary with me, I'm so blessed to have Dr. Anika Wilson Brown, who is a spiritual leader and a mental health advocate. She is also a storyteller who is committed to bringing awareness and healing in the areas of intergenerational, racial, and religious trauma.
Yes.
So welcome to the sanctuary. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for having an awareness to bring awareness about intergenerational, racial, and religious trauma, because I think that people don't talk about it enough.
Oh, absolutely.
And many people have been traumatized.
Yes.
So I wanted to just talk about how you got to knowing that is important to bring. So I want you to give the listeners your history.
Okay.
And then talk about how you got to that, because I have a story, my own story that I want to share about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So hello to everybody. And thank you for having me, Wendy.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy to be here. So how did I get to the realization that this was something that needed to be addressed?
Yes.
Is through my study of practice of psychology. And taking courses in college. I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a counselor.
Okay.
And I just realized that there were many issues that were not really being attended to from a racial perspective. Mm-hmm. And that awareness, I think, came from, having parents who were very pro-Black, and emphasized this Black pride and African culture. Okay. And so then to be studying a discipline that I felt left that component out just made me very, very interested in figuring out, why it is different in a lot of ways for Black folks and our understanding of what it is to be whole, our experiences with therapy and counseling and so forth. So it intrigued and piqued my interest. Okay. And I began to delve into really exploring the topic from there.
Okay. So that's awesome. So we're leading with a traumatic experience. So for me, I raised myself in the spiritual system of Christianity. My mom did not go to church,
right?
But my grandparents went. So I'm from Jersey. And so I'm in Jersey all the time, except for in the summers. So in the summers, we go to church with grandma and granddaddy. Yeah. Right. And so I loved the music. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the little old ladies that would shout and we used to laugh and see who was going to toss off their wig. I mean, That's what we did, right?
Right.
We were there all the time. And my grandmother was not playing.
Yeah.
So every Sunday, and then sometimes during the week, depending on what their meetings were. And then we'd go home and we didn't go. And I didn't really mind it. I mean, it was what it was. But by the time I got into the 5th grade, I was feeling a need to go on my own. And so we had a new pastor that came to our city, and he rallied up all the kids. Yeah. And he would even drive us. So that was
to
key.
Make sure you got there.
So I went there from 5th grade to I graduated high school. And he was like my dad.
Yeah.
He had this big booming voice. He was from the streets of Philadelphia. He wanted everybody to know he was from North Philly. But he had like this baritone voice, and he dressed up with like a hat to the side. He had like that Fred Flintstone like afro with like the part on the side. He was just really cool to me. And then by the time so like when I was leaving to go to college, the day that I was leaving, the church had a festival, and he walked me to my car. I went to go say bye to everybody. And he said, "Don't take no wooden nickels from no niggas." That's what my pastor told me. So I'm like, love them. I love them, right?
That's awesome.
So then I get to church, get to college, and I find another church.
Yeah.
By senior year, the pastor was calling me and telling me how pretty I was sitting out in the pew.
Whoa.
Right? And at first it was real subtle. It was just like, "Hey, Sister Cherry," you know, and I'm like, what, 19, 20?
Yeah.
And he was a big pastor in this small town. I went to school in Virginia, in college at Virginia State. So he was from that city. And so over the course of the time, it was so uncomfortable. He would call at 7:00 in the morning. Now, this was before cell phones. So this is my whole house phone is ringing.
Right.
My roommates are like, "Yo, what's good?"
Yeah.
Right. And then when I said, "Please don't call me anymore," after like 2 weeks, then he got his armor bearer to start calling me.
Whoa.
Who was like a little young guy, you know. So the straw that broke the camel's back was I was so mortified. And then I was like, "Nah, I can't go to church because he's looking at me."
Right.
You know. And so I asked him not to call. And then I think the last time he called, my roommate answered the phone, and she gave him some words. So graduated, came home, and then I'm in Jersey, and I'm at my church that I went to in Jersey, and he's going to be a guest.
Oh, no.
So I go to the woman who was on leadership, and she did nothing. I told her my roommates knew. I never told my mother.
Right.
I told people who I was close with, you know, but kids, we all like kids, 21. And so I got there, and she said, I like knew that something was going to happen. I knew somebody was going to get them.
Right.
Nothing. So trauma. And I was traumatized, and I was mad.
Yeah.
Because I was like, all the gloves are off. Because you're here with these collegiates, and you're like, you're supposed to be our safe place away from home. We were supposed to be like the special ones, right? We're the ones who weren't doing the sex, drugs, and rock and roll is what it was supposed to be.
Right.
And you're telling us all these things, and then you do this. So it came out that I wasn't the only one because of the ease at which he did it. He just did it so easily.
Oh yeah, it was familiar for him.
So you know, after that, I knew that it wasn't everybody because I had my pastor from home, you know, who was a model, who was like my dad, who was a model. But that was when my side eyeing of the third eye began. Yes. So you're talking about trauma. Talk about from growing up in a popular church here in Washington, D.C., Union Temple Baptist Church, how you have seen trauma show up.
Oh, wow. I think the first place I see trauma show up is in just my own personal experience as far as being a PK and having preacher's kid, and, you know, growing up in somewhat of a fishbowl where you're held to these standards. It didn't come from my parents. Right. But it came from the environment. It came from the church culture. Yes. Where I felt held to a standard that others were not held to. And that there were people who were mean to me, and I didn't have a right or a voice to express that pain because I had to be the preacher's kid. I had to be the good girl. I had to, and that's when you begin to negatively look at these words like forgiveness and, because it's like, okay, so I can forgive them, but does it mean I don't have a right to be treated fairly?
Right.
So those kind of experiences cultivated like a silence within me where I would not speak up.
Wow.
Where I would be hurt, but I wouldn't acknowledge the hurt.
Okay.
Where I would be disappointed, but I would not fully allow myself to feel it. Right.
Wow.
So that was on a personal level. And then I saw it with my friends where I had some friends who got pregnant when we were teenagers and how the church rejected them and how the church treated them.
Right.
So I had these parents that were cultivating this pride and love and protection around these girls. My mom, she created a group for all the teen pregnant girls. And she told the people in church, you all need to love them. You need to treat them no differently. But I saw the difference. I saw that in this place that where, you would expect that everybody is accepted and loved and valued, that there were these contradictory messages that I was receiving from what I was feeling, from what I would hear from my parents, and then from what I would see sometimes from the larger church body. So it created a conflict, which was traumatizing for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. To have to, live in that space, grow in that space. And that was our life. Like you said, all day, it wasn't just summer for us.
Right.
But all day. It was different then when you have revivals on school nights and you're doing your homeworks on the pew and, so that was the experience for me.
So let's talk about even the history of Union Temple Baptist Church. So now your dad, Reverend Willie Wilson, is retiring.
He is.
And it's been a big thing in the media here in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
He just had a big gala. Louis Farrakhan is one of his friends.
Yes.
And so let's talk about like how that was growing up.
Yes. So that speaks to the differences I saw too, because my father, my mother were very loving, accepting. I realized very early that their version of faith was different from a lot of people surrounding us. So I saw them be rejected for who they stood up for.
Okay.
My father was one of the first that stood up to the Baptist convention and said that women should be able to preach.
Wow.
And he got put out for making that stand. I saw how, other religious institutions, they're more advanced now. But back then when we invited Farrakhan, how they would reject him and talk about him and, call him all kinds of names. I saw how firmly both of my parents spoke out against racism and different acts of violence in the city.
Okay.
And their activism really spoke to me. And I saw that it was a little different from some of the other places that I experienced as church. So I automatically saw myself as weird, different, that I would not be accepted or received because I saw that was their experience a lot of times. Wow. That standing up, standing out and doing what we say Jesus actually did in ministry, speaking out for the oppressed, standing up for those who are overlooked, going to see about those who others had forgotten was the very thing that I think that my parents throughout history were often rejected for. But it also was the thing that set them apart. Right. And, created this culture, this legacy of what we call Union Temple, which has a strong, strong history and legacy within the community because of those very things.
So now, how did your parents get to that?
My father often tells the story of being on Howard University's campus. Okay. And how it was like the bougie school back then. All of the elite blacks were there back then when he went. Okay. And he talked about how he was there, but they weren't allowed to preach from a African perspective. They weren't allowed to sing gospel music, the kind that you felt when you went into church. Yep. They were teaching them a different kind of worship experience that, really was a hijack of the culture. Of course. And so his vibrancy and passion for Black folks caused him and many others on the campus to really rebel against what they were teaching, and caused them to push up against that. And so they had many protests where he tells of one experience where they went out on the lawn and the choir sang gospel music, and he preached a sermon from African tradition with his dashiki on and his afro, wow. And just how powerful that experience was. So that activism, I think, really began for him there.
Wow.
Where he, within himself, knew that his version of what it meant to be a Christian was going to be a lot different from what others are talking and espousing.
Okay. So, yeah, his version of Christianity is different.
Yeah.
So from your experience, what is that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because like if you go to the church, for anybody who has not been, if you go to Union Temple, you walk in and first of all, you see this beautiful mural, and it has like...
Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
Black Jesus is the center of it. You know, Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, and all of these prolific leaders in the depiction of the Last Supper.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So for somebody who walks in, so your parishioners or the congregants, they had to kind of have that mindset too.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's always been that way. We used to be in a smaller building, a red brick building, and we had a Black Jesus on the wall there.
Okay.
And when we moved into the new building, there was a poll amongst the membership as who are the most prolific African-American leaders that we would like to embed in the consciousness of Black folks that come in here.
Wow.
Because the image of white Jesus, who we know is blonde haired, blue eyed depiction that you often see over grandma's table,
right?
You know, in the dining room,
right?
You know, it is very different from
my grandma had that.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So that often when people think about Jesus, that's the image that pops in their head.
Isn't that like Leonardo da Vinci's cousin?
Girl cousin that he used to pose for that.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, to actually create that artwork. Wow. That's who he used as a model. But that's the image that comes in our mind when we, think about, subconsciously. And so that image was important to shift the consciousness of people and create a sense of pride.
Absolutely.
And connection to Jesus, the Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like maybe about a week or 2-3 ago on your Facebook page, you wrote this quote and I was like, here's the topic. One of the topics.
Yes.
You said the religion that has initiated your bondage is not the same religion that will liberate you.
Oh, yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Oh, buddy, we about to get good.
Let's get it, because this is the sanctuary, right?
Yes.
And so that's where we go in. Like I call it, like it's real woo-woo. We get real energetic and spiritual, but we also keep it real.
Keep it real. It real. So that version of Christianity that it has created bondage for us is a whitewashed Christianity. It's the one that we have been given,
right?
That is actually part of creating our powerlessness, our bondage and submission.
Absolutely.
And so that is the faith that many of us are often introduced to Jesus through, right? It's this came down from your grandma and your great grand, and it passes down. So it holds this special place in us. So it's hard to let it go. But there comes a point in your own evolution,
right,
where you have to begin to dissect these things that you've been told.
Absolutely.
And reevaluate them and look at them from different angles for yourself. Right. So that you can have a God of your own understanding. And part of that process means that I have to let go of those things that actually don't serve me.
Right.
That I have to release those things that are actually creating bondage.
Right.
And so
that's revolutionary.
That's revolutionary.
Because people are afraid.
Absolutely.
I think people are afraid to do that, but I also think they feel like they may need permission to do it, and you don't need permission.
You don't need permission. Yeah, but you've been taught you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
You've been taught you shouldn't question God.
That's right.
Well, who else do I question?
Right.
If I don't understand, And so that is not just something that we believe. I think that is something that religion has intentionally taught us so that we don't question certain things.
Right.
And so that we stay in this place of subserviency.
Right.
Right. Because I always say, even as I work with counseling clients, my goal is really to work myself out of a job.
Yeah, so you don't need anybody.
So that you don't need anybody.
Nobody needs the therapy at that point.
Absolutely. So if the church operates from that framework, then that means that the church is actually supposed to develop and grow people.
Yeah.
You know, so that they are not dependent on this institution for everything, you know, but that they have relationship and they've cultivated an awareness that allows them to be empowered.
Right.
To know the God within themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up in Jersey in the 80s, there was a group called the 5% Nation. And they were the gods and the queens and the earths, right? And they said, you are a god.
Yeah.
And you are a goddess.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they didn't, for me, for Wendy specifically, they didn't give that message to me on a silver platter where I felt comfortable, because I still always had my grandmother in Virginia, her going, and my mom didn't go to church.
Right.
So my grandmother said my grandmother said my mom was going to hell. She told us that. She told us that.
That's traumatizing.
Yeah, she told us that.
Yeah.
So from being a little kid going and then getting into my church in New Jersey, I always tried to get my mom to go. And she just had her own trauma. She ain't want to go.
Right.
You know, not that she doesn't have her own spiritual connection. She just did not want to go. But I was so petrified that something was going to happen to my mom.
Yes.
And so my boyfriend at the time in high school said, because my mom is the bomb. She's loving, she's caring, she's giving, she's sweet. She loves to expose us to things. And he was like, do you really think she's going to hell?
Right. That's that
and
question.
And I was just like, no.
Right. Right.
So it just, I think I lost my train of thought, but it just was, I started to question. So for myself, probably and my hair is 7 years old. I have locks for those who can't see me. I have locks. They're 7 years old. And I swear it really did. My eyes started to open when I grew them. People say that happened to them. People say it's woo-woo, but you know, if you're in the sanctuary, then we talking woo stuff. And so I first was introduced to maybe something else from the gods at home in the 80s, right? Yeah. And then I go to college and then I'm totally in it.
Yeah.
And then I come home and then I'm evolving and going through life and trying to be this good Christian girl. And it ain't nothing wrong with being a good Christian girl, but right. I'm also I'm all the way in or I'm all the way out.
Right.
So for me, that's rigidity. So I became very rigid.
Yeah.
And then very, not, condemning, because that's what I was told.
Right.
The little girls who are pregnant, they are XYZ, and so you have almost we were taught as young people in college in the gospel choir and all these things that we were elite.
Oh, yeah.
We were better than. And somebody keeps telling you that, then you really start to believe it.
Yeah.
And so only, 7 or 8 years ago, could have even been 10 years ago, I started asking for wisdom because I went to jail.
Yeah.
And I thought I would never go to jail. I'd seen people around me go to jail, but not me and my mother.
Right.
And my daughter, who was 9 at the time. So I was pissed.
Yeah.
So then I come to church and they say, pray about it. So now at that point, I'm ready to choke somebody. I'm like, pray about it. Do you know they just put me in jail?
Right.
And so then I just was like, there has to be more. Absolutely. There has to be something different. And then I just became angry because I'm like, this happened, but then maybe 6 months later, Mike Brown happened. And then the flurry, because then we have social media. Now we know in this community it's always happened.
Yes.
But now because we have the internet and Facebook Live and all that, we saw it more. So now everybody's talking about it. And so now I'm even more traumatized, but now I'm galvanized within myself. I was just we need a revolution. I'm wanting to march with everybody else. Then I came to realize that the revolution is internal.
It is.
I had to do my own work.
Yes.
So then I became a seeker. And then I started traveling and reading and connecting with other spiritual systems just to see what they was talking about.
Yeah.
Went and studied, I studied Kemetic, science, and then went to Egypt on my own, went to Kemet with Tony Browder and got to see the pyramids and the writings on the walls from my own eyes.
Yeah.
Not because my grandmother said so.
Right.
I saw it for myself. And then I read the books, and then I studied some of the other master teachers who were just on YouTube because they did. So they're on YouTube. And then I read some of their books.
Yes.
And then, I went to Cuba and studied the Orisha and studied yoga. And so I'm just like, there is more.
Absolutely.
And there is something that I can do to make myself feel better and not just wait till somebody in the sky comes back to save me, and then I can enjoy my life.
Absolutely.
I'm supposed to be enjoying my life right now.
Yes.
So you are going to be taking over for your dad in April.
Yes.
And so so it's one of those things where in church they say putting new wine in new wine skins. How are you prepared to do that and to give that message in this time?
Yes.
Because it's so crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Things are just so crazy right now, and people are stressed out. And we're going to talk about the trauma.
Yeah. Because
you're a psychologist and you are a leader. And so you see those people and you have to counsel those people.
Yes.
What is going to be the message for 2020, which is even a whole nother decade?
Absolutely.
Energetically too.
Yes.
It's a whole new thing coming.
Energetically. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's a powerful time. Like you said, it is a tumultuous time.
It is.
Where things are shifting rapidly, but it's a time of awakening.
Absolutely.
It's a time where people are doing that. I love your path and your process because it speaks to that process of ascension that we all must go through.
Yeah.
Learning, exploring. It is only a Eurocentric perspective that says these different things are separated. From an Afrocentric cosmology, there is no separation.
It's also
life.
and.
It is
both.
It is both and.
Where they are black and white.
Absolutely.
My way or the highway.
Absolutely. So I can balance my chakras.
I
can balance my chakras. I can speak in tongues. I can shout in church. I can go to yoga.
Yes.
I can experience the full spectrum of what I am being called to. Right. And so the church that is now is not the church that was, because the church that I lead will allow people to evolve in their process, to explore their own Christology, which is the Christ that is within them. Okay. Right. Their own path, knowing, as you said, the 5%ers were saying that God is within you. Right.
They say black man is God, but I didn't even go all the way there.
Oh yeah. Knowing that, accessing that, tapping into that is about being open. Is about being willing to explore. The class my father is teaching right now is a class on world religions. Okay. And the premise of that class is that I'm not a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus, because there's a distinction between the two. Okay. Right? So Christianity, as you see it, is very confined. It is very limiting. It does not allow you to see the wealth and value in other religions. But a follower of Jesus is one that when Jesus saw other people that were doing other things other than, he said, are the people getting healed? Okay. Are they getting well? Well, leave those people be. Okay. When you talked about she's a prostitute, you shouldn't let her around. He said, let her be. Yeah. So there was a different approach that we don't see it necessarily reflected in traditional Christianity. And this is how we can walk in that space and be the both and.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. I even had my own aha moment for that. Okay. Yeah. So when I went to Africa, I went to West and East Africa.
Yes.
I traced my own DNA through African ancestry in 2007. And then I went in 2015 to Cameroon. When I walked there, I had never seen so many white Jesuses in my life.
Oh my goodness.
I was in shock.
Yes.
I had no clue. Like we went to one of the Congress people's homes on his property, on his compound. They're like almost like the one in Brazil.
Yes.
That big old. So I'm thinking like the what did you call it? Intergenerational. That's passed down to us.
Passed down.
And so colonization is super deep.
Oh, yes.
And it's on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it disallows us to see who we are really.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was starting to have those shingles come off my eyes and starting to awaken, I felt so empowered.
Yes.
And I heard the gods in my ear going, the Black man is God. And then I'm thinking, I am a goddess. And not in a way that there is no creator. Of course, I know there's a creator.
Exactly.
But it just gave me, I felt so empowered, inspired, and then educated.
Yes.
And then I just moved differently. Like I changed my whole life. And some people were side-eyeing me. My mom does like a half of a side eye, but she's like, do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
But like other family members and friends, I think they probably kind of sat back and were like, because they were used to me being the rah-rah Christian, whatever that was that I was raised in. Yes. But I like your approach to see to be a follower of Jesus versus the rigidity that Christianity presents in a colonized lens.
Yes. Yes.
Because my grandmother was raised in a colonized lens.
Yes.
So, and it worked for her because she felt good whenever she prayed. She used to cry at church. My cousin called it buck dancing, and I would like get away from her. It made her feel good. She cried all for the rest of the week, and she sang the songs that they sang on Sunday the rest of the week. So that was her balm.
Yes. Yes.
And whatever your balm is all right with me.
All right with me.
If it works for you, then it works for me.
That's right.
So, but I do want to talk about, it works for that generation, for some in that generation.
Right.
So my mom is an elder, and it didn't work for her.
It didn't work for her.
But what we're coming up with now is that the Pew Research Center says that 19% of Blacks under 30 are unaffiliated with a religion.
Yes.
There's plenty of articles that are saying that millennials are leaving the Black church specifically in droves because they're seeking something else.
Yes.
So how can you speak to that? What do you say for that?
This is that time of awakening. It is time for the church to be honest. I would say the Black church to be honest about the experiences, that have come out of the Black church experience. The woundedness, the brokenness. I think that when we see the mass exodus, it's people saying, I don't want nothing to do with that Jesus. If that's what, if that's what this means, then I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything that's inauthentic.
Right.
I want you to be real with me. I want you to be honest with me. I want you to let me know that you struggle too.
Right.
This is a part of my preaching process, is being authentic, is to let people see who I am and that I struggle like them, and that it's okay to ask questions.
Right.
It's okay that you don't understand.
Right.
And allowing people that space. I think in the past, churches have given young people a high standard to live up to.
Oh my gosh.
One that most often the leaders are not even able to obtain themselves.
Absolutely.
And so how are we going to create disciples, those that are going to follow this process and live it out in their own lives, if what you're giving them to follow is false?
Right. Because a lot of it goes against human nature.
Absolutely.
So your human nature, so then you suppress.
Yes.
So a lot of people who have been, in specific spiritual systems that are very oppressive, then it creates problems in the body.
Absolutely.
It creates sickness in the body.
Yes, absolutely.
What happened to me?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely happens. It happens in the body. It happens in the mind. So
let's talk about the mind. So you are bringing, and many churches do this. Many churches are now having like ministries for grieving care and divorce care. And, I remember there was like this big, huge thing where everybody had a ministry for AIDS when that was really popular.
Right.
So now you're talking about integrating therapy and spiritual practices into healing modalities. So talk about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it taps into the notion that we have this innate healing ability within us. There are things that we know. Grandma used to go out there and she'd be able to give you exactly what herb, what So you put an onion in your sock, there were all of these things that she didn't learn in school, but you would feel better the next day. Yeah. Right. It was an inner knowing, an intuitive knowing that I believe is a higher realm spiritual understanding that was taken from us for a reason. Mm-hmm. And it was demonized and oftentimes connotated as witchcraft or the opposite of Christianity, which was an opportunity for us to take on someone else's way of being, practicing, living, and behaving, right? And cause us to walk away from many of the indigenous spiritual practices that actually give us life. Absolutely. That I know that when I go sit out in the sun, I'm not worshiping the sun, but the sun is blessing me. It heals me. There are vitamins and all kind of nutrients that are, and then mentally, like my whole body is restored. When I put my feet in the ground and take my shoes off,
they call it earthing,
grounding myself, that I can still love Jesus and do these things. Right. It does not mean that there's a separation or that I have to put down one in order to pick up the other. Right. So that's about accepting the wholeness, the totality of who I am. The African cosmology, we're reclaiming. We are going back to reclaim many of these things that have been taught. Oh, you're not supposed to burn no sage. What you mean? Right. Well, you anoint. And it's to say it's weird because that you'll anoint someone with olive oil. Right. But and you're blessing them, right? And but I can't burn a sage or that I can't take something and spritz and bless my environment, but you will go and get some holy water and use it as a part of your sacrament or your Holy Spirit. So engaging those questions, reclaiming those things that we've put down, and a lot of those practices that our grandparents honestly still practice, but back in the kitchen. Yeah. They call it back kitchen religion. Yeah. Where they would go to church, but they held on to many of those traditions. So we have to reclaim.
I love that. And I'm all about trying to reclaim it. Yes. I definitely am. So even maybe September 2018, I think you came to my autumn equinox event. Shout out to my girl Rissy Cat who hosted us, but we went to the water and we did rituals and we talked about, at this time it was fall. Yes. And we were talking about how it's time to start to gather the tools, just like the other mammals and other animals do naturally. They do it naturally to prepare for the hibernation of the winter. Yes. So if you think about it, it's cold, right? Okay. It gets dark early. You only want to really be out and about when it's light. And then when it's dark, you really do naturally feel like you want to be home, bundled up, having some soup, drinking some tea. That's a natural progression of a season. And so even 11/11, people see it on the clock all the time, but that wasn't so far away where people were celebrating the 11/11, the opening of the portal for a new season. Right. Yesterday was a full moon. Yes. And the energy lasts for 3 days. So we're still in that that full moon energy. And animals, they react and respond in certain ways. And so do humans too, because hospitals and police departments are full. Oh, yes. And teachers are ready to pop some kids because they're acting so crazy. Yes. I had a whole conversation about this yesterday about with a teacher who's just like, the kids are bugging. I'm like, it's a full moon.
It's a full moon.
So we are going back to that. We are awakening. We're remembering. We're remembering. Yeah. So even my movement is the Goddess Awakening and Healing. It's just because we've been asleep.
That's all.
Yeah. And so now it's time. Absolutely. And when you can awaken, you heal.
Absolutely.
Because you know different things to do.
Yeah. And that awareness is powerful. Even when you talk about this changing in the seasons, there is something called seasonal affective disorder.
I have it. Sad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is real. Yes. But it also is related to our unwillingness to obey the natural circadian rhythm.
Of course.
Of knowing, listening to the body, knowing that this is time for me to prepare for hibernation. And so we look at that from a Eurocentric perspective and we say, oh, something's wrong with me. I don't feel like doing anything. All I want to do is lay down. All I want to, and you think you put a negative connotation with that. Right. Well, awareness causes you to know, oh, I'm being called to stillness.
Right.
So there are certain practices that I can put in place to cultivate this time. What should I be doing?
Right.
Wisdom, spiritual intuitiveness, sitting, meditating, saying, what am I being called to do at this moment? Maybe I'm not supposed to be so busy right now. And it's so crazy because it bumps right up against preparing for the holidays. So you feel like you have to be hustling and bustling, doing all of this thing. But the Spirit is saying, be still, prepare for what's coming.
Right.
Rest.
Right.
Eat certain foods. You talked about that at your experience. There are certain foods you should be eating. There are certain ways you should be spending your evenings, spending time with your family, being still, and you'll begin to get through this season as it's supposed to naturally evolve.
So from 4th grade, I had what they call SAD, but in the 70s, there wasn't a diagnosis for it. So I used to dread daylight savings time when they switched those clocks back. And it's only been, so I want to even retract what I said. I said, I have it. No, I don't have it because now I have the tools and I have the awareness.
Yes.
So just over the last few years, I have been unwhite knuckling myself when that daylight savings comes. And I just know that this is the natural cycle.
Absolutely.
So that was even part of why I did that event that time, because I felt like if I was feeling that way, I wanted to help other people who may have been feeling that way. And then I had a sister from the Blackberry Beauty Academy named Lisa Marie Goodson come on to the show. She lives in North Carolina, but she came on and she talked about how to gather the tools too.
Yes.
What we should be doing. What does it look like? Exactly what you just said. It's time to rest. And actually, from an energetic perspective, the new year does not start January 1st. It's at the spring equinox.
Yes.
That's when, and that's what March, March time frame. So that's just so they can get your money.
Exactly.
That's what that is. Hustle bustle. You see all these commercials and everything.
Yes,
they just want you to spend your money because for many businesses, that's the end of their fiscal year. And they're trying to infuse as much cash into the economy as they can.
That's what it is.
So just know that. That's
Absolutely.
what it is.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I just wrote, before you said it, ask myself. So one of my spiritual teachers named Osset Ayawaku she says to everybody, sit and ask Spirit what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
What works for somebody else might not work for you.
Absolutely.
And so I am learning to do that because I used to be like the bandwagon kind of chick. I jump on that bandwagon and I just go because that's how I was trained.
Right.
And so now for my own, I did 11/11 rituals and things for myself. I had some prompts, but I made it my own.
Make it your own.
And it felt more natural than me go do this. And then I'm just kind of side eye and I ain't really feel nothing.
Yes. Yes. And what you just spoke is really key to our own spiritual evolution, right? And so religion would say to us that there is a standard practice and certain things everybody should be doing. They told you to pray about it. Well, that wasn't the solution for you. And so what happens is when somebody tells you pray about it and that don't help, you think something's wrong with you.
Right. Or God's not listening.
God's not listening. And then it also relates to this mental health stigma thing where you go, well, I'm sad. I'm upset. I prayed about it. Nothing changed.
Right.
What's wrong with me? Right. That ties into that stigma that keeps many of us from seeking the support, services, and help that we need. So although I feel like church is a place where we gather collectively and corporately, but there has to be an individual and personalized spiritual practice that you develop and that you cultivate that helps you to be able to work through and navigate your own personal experience. So I love what your spiritual mentor said. So
we wanted to talk about erasing the religious and cultural stigma of therapy. How will you present that when you take on the leadership role? What will your, do you call them congregants? What do you call them?
Oh, I haven't decided what I'm going to call them. I guess I can figure that out.
Yeah. What your people's,
my folks.
Yeah. What are they going to expect? What can they expect when they have been told for so long, just pray about it. But now there might be some tools that you're going to bring.
Yeah. So there's two sides of that coin. The first part is I am transparent. And in communicating, I have a therapist.
Yeah. Oh, everybody needs one.
Everybody needs one. The same way you have a dentist and a doctor.
Yep.
I believe that everybody needs a therapist.
Absolutely.
So I'm transparent about that. And I communicate it regularly. I put it in my sermons. When I was with my therapist yesterday, she told me that, I am, because I understand that repeating that is very important to removing that stigma that something is wrong with it. Right. At the same time, I'm communicating that we have to be aware that there are certain things within therapy that might not resonate with us as African American people. And so we have to vet out those that we work with. Because, for example, I can be diagnosed with anxiety because I am fearful for my son every day when he leaves the home, right? And so they might say I have general anxiety. They may say I need medication. But have they taken into consideration the cultural experience of what it means to be Black? The reality of the experience that my friend's son ain't come home last week, and so this is real. This is not, I am not fantasizing. I am not imagining, but this is my real life experience. Right. So although we need to open ourselves up to therapy, we also need to open ourselves up to therapists that have cultural awareness.
Absolutely.
And therapists that are able to, decolonize their practices in a sense.
Absolutely.
And will not lean so quickly to diagnoses. But are able to sit with you and work with you. Therapists who are able to merge the practices, like we said, no division, right? Of spirituality. You can't work with Black folks and not deal with their spirituality, their theology, why they think these things are happening in their lives, right? So it's important that we're transparent, but we also vet out these processes and seek out people who are culturally aware.
Now, that's your colleague group. Are there many? I know there are some here in Washington, D.C., but across the nation, is that something that people are moving to? Or so I went to, maybe a few years ago, I went to the Black Social Workers convention at the Harbor. So my mom was a social worker for 30 plus years, and my niece is a new social worker. But when I went over there, they were all Afrocentric.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, hey, I'm so happy y'all are here.
I love it.
So for therapists, are we moving that way, or?
Oh yeah, there's actually movement in that direction. I love the Black Psychologists Association, the Black. So so you're seeing these things come forth, but again, you're going to see people in those organizations that have the full spectrum. So some are like Black power all the way. Don't go see nobody unless they Black. Then there's other. So you have that full spectrum of range. So again, you have to figure out where you can fit in and what works for you.
What works for you.
And it's just like finding any other doctor. You might not like the first two you go to. It might not sit well with you. Keep trying. And don't just leave from that, one experience and say, that was awful. I'm never doing that again. Therapists are whack, because you don't do that when you go to other modalities.
If it was your hairdresser, you would just go to the next one.
To the next one.
Right.
You would go to the next one. And so finding that fit is a big part of it. But people are becoming more aware and teaching from that perspective. There's one sister I follow named Dr. Jennifer. She's on Instagram. And her page is Decolonizing Therapy. Ooh. I love her work because she is a therapist too, but she talks about the importance, of decolonizing the modalities that we use and the practices that we use, and just making sure that they're reflective of the African American experience.
It's so important. I've been to both. I started out with a European one, because you just think that's what you do. But as I was able to make my own decisions, I definitely feel it. And then studying myself, being certified in integrative nutrition, but then moving out to anything that nourishes, and then having experiences working at an integrative doctor's office and just seeing how we just different.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're just different. So our needs are different. Do you know Dr. Patricia Newton?
I don't.
Yes. So Dr. Patricia Newton came on the show and we talked about PTSD. Some people used to say, the normal terminology is post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So they call it post-traumatic slavery disorder
yes.
or order, but now she has changed it to persistent slavery because it's happening still.
Oh, yes.
Don't think it's in the past.
Right.
Everything that's happening right now
is a trigger.
It's still a trigger for those things. So it is very, very, very important if, nobody gets, you're going to get lots of this, of course, from this, of course. But if you don't hear anything else, therapy, whether you're a man or a woman, a child, we all need it because also the internet and the connection and the electromagnetic frequencies and the poor food and water and the air and the sitting in the traffic, that all causes stress on the body, which then can cause mental illness.
Absolutely.
It's all encompassing.
All encompassing.
So I don't want you to get away from that, but I definitely want you to connect with Dr.
I would love to.
Because even if you're having some events that are coming up, invite her to come.
Oh, I would love
She's
to.
amazing. She's right in Baltimore.
Okay.
She's amazing.
Okay, good.
So I love the decolonization of everything. But definitely therapies. And so I wanted to talk about your 30-day detox.
Yes.
You do a 30-day detox on your Facebook page.
I do.
And how did you get to that? And I see that it has grown. I think I was in the first one when it was just a few, and now it's like, boom.
Oh, it's almost at 8,000 people in that group now. Okay. I don't even know how that happened. Other than it speaks to speaks to the need. And it is an integrative approach that speaks to the soul, mind, and body of individuals. It just gives them 30 days of focus. Okay. Like reconnecting to the spirit, to the soul, cleansing, drinking water, 30 minutes a day doing some type of movement. First 30 minutes of the day, not having that phone in your hand.
Absolutely.
Last 30 minutes, not having that phone. And so it has about 8 tips for you to engage in over the 30 days. It's really just designed to realign yourself spiritually, mentally. There's an affirmation that you get every day. And I have suggested songs on the list.
Okay.
They range from go-go to rock to gospel to hip hop to whatever.
Okay.
Because I believe that music is healing.
It is.
And it cannot be just restricted to one genre of music. So it is a holistic healing experience. And I put it out there because I wanted to do it for myself.
Right.
And somebody else said, I want to join. And next thing I know, I created the group and it's now just grown to like a huge, huge thing. So it's really
That's
exciting.
amazing. So can you give us maybe like 4 tips?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
So one is, of course, to limit the electromagnetic waves that you're exposed to at night before you want to go to rest.
Yeah.
So you need to deprogram yourself and allow yourself the same way you do for baby. You give them their bath, you play a little music, you rub them down with lotion, you let them sit for a while. We get away from that as adults and we're on the phone. We have the TV going. There are some that now can't even sleep without the TV being on. And so you're just getting this stimulus all night long. And so one of the things is to kind of wean yourself back. Start with 10 minutes before bed and then take it to 20, then 30. And hopefully you can get up to an hour or two where you have this time of stillness, where you're drinking tea, where you're listening to some relaxing music, where you are meditating and journaling about your day rather than taking in all of these distractions. So that's one.
Can I piggyback off of that? And I go even further because I'm extra. I turn off the Wi-Fi at night.
Oh.
Because the body doesn't heal. The body heals at night. The body regenerates, restores. And I did a whole show on like, is your Wi-Fi making you sick? And so basically when you sleep at night, especially if you have your phone by your head, the rays are coming in so you're not able to sleep. So the melatonin is what makes you sleep. When you look at your phone, it's a blue light. So you'll see now Apple and some other ones, they have like a yellow amber hue that comes on at night. That helps. But it still blocks the melatonin from coming. It's a hormone that comes into your body and that helps you sleep.
Yes.
And then when the melatonin kicks in is when the body starts to restore, regenerate, renew, and everything. The cells do, everything has their own little thing that they have to do.
Right.
And
everybody's working in the body.
Everybody's working. And it only happens from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yep.
It only happens. And then it only happens if your belly is is empty. So if you're still digesting food, which takes the most energy out of your body, it's not happening.
Right.
So then you wake up the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and that's why you're stressed out, brain fog, and then turning off the Wi-Fi.
Yes.
I used to have it on a timer. The timer don't work. I do it with my hand.
I'm gonna start doing that.
And then in the morning, I don't even turn it on until I come home from work because I'm not at work. Cutting my electricity bill down too. And then my daughter's head was on the other side of the entertainment center from the living room. And so she was getting headaches.
Getting all, yeah.
So
I'm
turn
going
it
to
off.
start doing that. I didn't know about that. Yeah.
We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So let's do one more tip.
Okay. One more is having a morning ritual.
Okay.
Waking up before you have to wake up. To really center yourself, to give your gratitude, to, I say move, get some dancing, yoga, whatever it is, move that body, and get yourself centered and set intention on what you want this day to be. Because the day is going to be however you envision it to be.
Right.
You know, and so just that small practice of just waking up a few minutes. We like to push that snooze button and wait to that last second, but just that few minutes earlier to create that atmosphere, what you want your day to be is powerful.
Right. And the energy, everything is energy.
Everything.
So that's why we're talking about like even Wi-Fi or electromagnetic frequency. That's still an energy. And so if you wake up and have a good high, vibrate high, like they say, then you'll attract more of that.
Absolutely.
I have one more question and then we'll close.
Okay.
What you think about Kanye?
So I believe that the church has done a horrible thing by just judging this guy and just being so critical. I believe that there are other people creating music that we don't know what they believe.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So, and I feel that he represents what we talked about before. The authenticity is what draws young people. And it doesn't matter if you are perfect, if you're doing everything perfectly,
right?
You are drawing people because your authenticity. I do believe that, you know, as mentioned, there are some mental health things that need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
You know, that are conflicting what is happening.
Right.
Yeah. But overall, I just believe that everybody has their own path and journey, and we just got to respect.
I believe that too.
Everybody's
they were
journey.
Tearing them up on the radio this morning. I was just like, I definitely think the mental issues.
Absolutely.
But that's his path. I need to worry about my path.
We got so much focus on what everybody else
the little
is doing.
girl on the internet says, worry about yourself. So I'm worrying about myself.
That's what I'm doing too.
So we have 2 minutes.
Okay.
And so you are going to be taking on the helm of this huge, amazing ship.
I'm excited about that.
So what is like the first thing that you want to, bring during the time?
Yeah.
Like the first initiative or whatever you want to bring.
So I've been instructed by all of my mentors that the first year is really about orientation and connecting. You know, when you bring in new leadership. So I'm not making any major changes off the bat, but I'm really excited about reconnecting to our community.
Okay.
Gentrification has shifted our whole community. So I'm really interested in reconnecting and figuring out how to reinvigorate the young people and empower that component of the church again. So I'm excited about it.
I wish you the best of everything.
Yes,
it's going to be amazing.
So
I plan to come. I do come sometimes, but I plan to be more regular because I needed to understand the Christology versus the follower of Jesus. And it made sense to me.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. I hope that, anybody else out there appreciates that too. So now where can we find you? AnikaWilsonBrown.com.
Yes, that's my website. I have a Facebook pages as well. Reverend Anika Wilson Brown, PhD is my page that they can like and see
PhD.
what I'm up to. Hey, I just finished that.
She just finished it. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations. So I just want to thank you for coming. Thank you for your to be here. Anytime you want to come back, because I feel like we just have some more to talk about.
I know we got a lot more.
Come on back anytime. And for those of you who joined us on our live, thank you so much. And feel free to reach out to Dr. Wilson Brown anytime on all of her socials.
Yes.
And thank you again for joining us in the sanctuary. If you haven't, please pick up my book, From Jersey to Me, The Awakening and Healing of a Goddess. wendycherry.com/book. And we talk about all these things in the book. So we will see you next time in the sanctuary. Peace.
Peace.